Hey everyone, welcome back. Let's jump right into today's explainer because we've got a really fascinating and honestly highly charged topic to unpack. We are going to objectively map out a viral video from the YouTube channel Liberal Hive Mind. This video weaves together a sprawling narrative connecting celebrity podcast controversies to sweeping claims about political corruption and systemic censorship. Now, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, understanding exactly how these wildly popular arguments are built is absolutely crucial. Our goal today isn't to take sides or validate the claims, but just to break down the source material and see how this creator constructs their argument from the ground up.
To make sense of all this, we're going to break things down into 4 quick parts. First, the Joe Rogan Spotify claims. Then, we'll look at the creator's personal YouTube experience, followed by their allegations of political weaponization, and finally, we'll wrap up with the video's big takeaway.
All right, kicking things off with part 1, the Joe Rogan Spotify claims, which really acts as the catalyst for this whole video.
I want to ground us directly in the source material by looking at Joe Rogan's exact words, which the host actually plays early on. Rogan claims, "I can't even talk about it, but there was presidents involved and former presidents involved that were contacting Spotify." We aren't just talking about angry internet mobs here. According to Rogan, actual sitting and former presidents were reaching out to the platform to intervene with his show. That quote sets a massive stage for the rest of what we're looking at today.
The host uses those claims as his foundation. He highlights that Rogan faced intense blowback, like organized PAC campaigns, just for questioning COVID-19 narratives. Interestingly, Rogan argues he only survived all this because Spotify isn't an American company. And he even claims that the things he was labeled as spreading misinformation over ultimately turned out to be right.
Now, the Liberal Hive Mind host takes Rogan's claims and immediately puts his own political spin on them. He argues that going after the biggest podcaster on the planet wasn't about national security or law-breaking. Actually, he claims if it was, they would have targeted left-wing commentators instead. Rather, the host frames this as an abuse of power meant to punish intellectual curiosity. The argument is simply that Rogan was attacked for asking questions about the mainstream science.
So that raises a really interesting question. How exactly does the video connect the struggles of a multimillionaire celebrity on Spotify to your average independent creator on the internet? Well, to bridge that gap, the host makes it personal.
Which brings us to section 2, the creator's YouTube experience, personalizing the narrative.
To back up Rogan's massive claims, the host shares his own channel's moderation history. He lays out this highly specific timeline, saying he was hit with 5 what he calls illegitimate medical strikes. Though he won the appeal on 4 of them, he claims he narrowly dodged a 3rd concurrent strike that would have deleted his channel entirely from the internet. And to really hammer home how wild he thinks this moderation is, he points out that one of those strikes was issued just for playing a Ron DeSantis press conference without adding much commentary. The crucial point the host is trying to make here is that government institutions functionally turn themselves into a censorship machine, controlling what Americans see and say. He even goes so far as to directly compare it to the dystopian novel 1984.
And this naturally leads into section 3, allegations of political weaponization, which is where the video lays out its broader political thesis.
The video now pivots to this idea of a massive double standard. The host claims that publicly, Democrats talk a big game about democracy and decency, but privately, behind closed doors, they weaponize every single institution of power to crush their opponents. He literally calls this behavior sacrilegious to the standard of the American government.
To back that up, the source video just rapid-fires a list of historical grievances. He explicitly links internet moderation to major Washington controversies, accusing Democrats of fabricating evidence for the Steele Dossier and the Mueller reports, and claiming the current criminal indictments against Donald Trump lack total jurisdiction.
But the host places a huge, incredibly heavy emphasis on one specific incident, the Hunter Biden laptop. The video defines this as a clear-cut case of corruption, where the FBI and CIA knew a story was real, but because it was bad for the Biden family, they intimidated social media companies to scrub it. He points to the 51 former intelligence officials who labeled it Russian disinformation as a corrupt conspiracy. For the host, this is the ultimate proof of the intelligence community manipulating media narratives.
Now, while throwing all these accusations at the left, the host makes a point to actively defend Donald Trump. He completely dismisses claims that Trump abused his power to go after political opponents, noting that any legitimate indictments under Trump actually came from impaneled grand juries, and he specifically points out those grand juries were summoned in Democrat-led cities, not directly by the president. And it all builds to this emotional peak. The host literally says it's corruption of the highest order. It's the stuff of a 1984 technocracy. He is painting a very vivid picture for his audience of total institutional capture.
All right, let's wrap things up with Section 4, the video's final takeaway, synthesizing the message.
The host highlights what he sees as a fascinating paradox. He points out that if you just look at policy preferences, Joe Rogan openly identifies as a left-winger. But when it comes to political support, Rogan is aligning with President Trump. On the surface, that seems kind of contradictory, right? Well, the video offers a specific explanation.
The video concludes that Rogan supports Trump because, in the host's words, he saw the beast. The argument is that Rogan lived through the institutional pressure and the PAC campaigns firsthand. The big takeaway the host wants viewers to have is that personal experiences with censorship are so incredibly powerful that they completely override a person's traditional left-wing or right-wing policy preferences.
So, I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder as we close out this explainer. We've seen how this creator seamlessly blended a pop culture podcasting moment with his own YouTube strikes to argue that the entire American political system is corrupt. Regardless of your politics or whether you believe the claims in the source material, we have to consider the impact here. When massively popular creators claim systemic censorship, how deeply does that alter the way everyday audiences view the truth itself? It's pretty wild to think about as we navigate today's media landscape. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. I hope it gave you a clear look at how these arguments are built. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.